Welcome back to Curse Conversations. For today's episode, I'll be your host, Sophie.
And I'll be your co-host, Angela.
And today, we will be talking about the case of Miyuki Ishikawa. She was a Japanese midwife, real estate agent, and serial killer.
Oh, she's a real estate agent?
Yep. We will just start right into the story, because this episode will include a lot of child deaths. So that's a bit of a trigger warning right here. We'll be starting about talking with her early life. Miyuki Ishikawa was born in a village in Hanjo in Miyazaki Prefecture. And she moved to Tokyo in 1914, where she graduated from the Tokyo Imperial University as a midwife. Mm-hmm. That same year, she married Takeshi Ishikawa, 3 years her senior, originally from Ibaraki Prefecture. Mm-hmm. Takeshi was a former sergeant and police officer and helped his wife's midwifery work without a regular job. And because Miyuki had had a hysterectomy, the marriage produced no biological children.
Okay.
Even so, the couple raised a boy from Takeshi's previous marriage and adopted 3 other children, 2 boys and a girl. Miyuki was an experienced midwife and managed a maternity home named Kotobuki Sanin, holding some important positions of multiple midwives associations. And in April of 1947, she ran in the election of Shinjuku's ward assembly members unsuccessful. Mm-hmm. In the late 1940s, during the immediate post-war period, many babies were kept in Kotobuki's Sanin, which is the home she had. Mm-hmm. Maternity home. And most of them were born out of wedlock, and their real mothers were too impoverished to properly raise their children.
Okay.
And due to a decrease in foster parents, Ishikawa chose to neglect numerous infants, many of whom died as the direct result of her neglect.
Oh.
Most of the other midwives employed by Ishikawa were really, they were disgusted by this practice and resigned from their positions.
Okay.
And at the same time, Ishikawa also attempted to garner payments for these murders.
What the heck?
She and Takeshi solicited large numbers of money from the parents, claiming that would be less expensive and it would be less than actually raising a unwanted child. A doctor named Shiro Nakayama was also involved in the scheme and aided the couple by falsifying death certificates. And the number of infants listed at Kotobuki Sanin and burial permits issued to the maternity home each year was very different. For example, the year that had the most amount of infants listed was around 100 infants.
Huh?
In 1947.
Jesus.
The burial permits that year was 53. Over half of them.
Poor babies.
That is basically what was happening, because due to war and other circumstances, they weren't really able to give the babies proper care, and you had other choices. You could have done a lot of things differently, but they chose to neglect them, and that resulted in their death.
I mean, so were they did they starve to death?
They did autopsies on some of the bodies they have found. They did not die of natural causes, to say the least. Mm-hmm. And here comes the arrest and the trial. 2 police officers from Waseda Police Station accidentally found the remains of 5 Ishikawa victims on January 12th of 1948. And like I said, autopsies were performed on them, and they proved that they did not die of natural causes.
So it was probably a quick death, though.
It could have been a quick death, or what also counts as unnatural cause would also be starvation or suffocation.
I would just hope for it to be a quick death. Like, poor baby.
Yeah. Ishikawa and her husband were arrested on January 15th. There were 7 surviving infants at the Totobuki Sanin at that point when they got arrested, but 2 died soon afterwards. The Public Health and Welfare Section the PHW, and Tokyo Military Government District also dispatched some officers to the site, and upon further investigation, the police found the ashes of over 40 infants in the house of a mortician, and those of 30 more in a temple.
In a temple?
Yeah. The sheer number of dead bodies recovered and the length of time over which the murders took place made it difficult for authorities to determine the exact amount of victims.
Oh, God.
And like we said, we found that many bodies, but in the end, they were only charged for 5.
Huh?
And they only served for 4 years.
4 years?
Yes.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's...
Like I said, the prosecutors asserted that the couple had murdered at least 27 infants among the 48 deaths between April of 1946 and January of 1948. On October 11th of 1948, the Tokyo District Court found the couple guilty of 5 murders, which included the 2 infants that were found alive, but passed quickly afterwards. They then sentenced Ishikawa and her husband to 8 years and 4 years, respectively. And both of the couples and the prosecutors appealed the sentence by August 16th of 1948. And on April 28th of 1952, the Tokyo High Court sentenced Ishikawa to 4 years in prison and Takeshi to 2 years, granting pardons by the Treaty of San Francisco. And the Supreme Court of Japan rejected the second appeal on September 15th of 1953. So their sentence was final. Ishikawa got 4 years and her husband got 2 years. After the neglect they put through hundreds kids, infants, they only got 4 years.
Was it, like, not enough evidence?
It's because of how long the time span was from the first, like, most of them were ashes at that point. So they couldn't say that they murdered them. They could only say they found bodies there. And it's not unnatural for there to be bodies, but that amount of bodies should at least raise some red flags.
Some?
But also you have to take into consideration this is right after the World War.
I guess. But still, that's so many.
Yeah. And after it, a lot of the social impacts on the society were because the victims were like deserted children. They had no parents to actually take care of them. Ishikawa insisted that the parents were responsible for their death.
I mean, honestly, not half wrong.
She isn't fully correct, but it isn't completely incorrect either.
Yeah.
Because she took them in. They were abandoned children. She took them in to her care, but she didn't care for them properly.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a difficult there's both two sides because they were both responsible for their deaths. And a lot of people supported that.
Yeah.
Because it was true.
It was, yeah.
Although there were also people that criticized them, saying that it was an example of discrimination against deserted children. And after this case was brought to the surface, it was revealed that the other 11 maternity homes in Tokyo had also committed crimes similar to the Kotobuki Sanin case by the end of 1948. So it was not just her.
I just hate that it's little kids.
Infants, not just children, they're infants.
Babies. I want a baby.
And the aftermath of that was Ishikawa, after being released, she had interviews with magazines claiming that she was innocent in the murders. And after she was released, she began working at selling soups and fast foods, basically. And at the time of the interview, her husband had already died.
Oh, yeah.
And Ishikawa was operating a real estate office in Tokyo, and she boasted about having built a big tomb for herself 2 years before. And her former lawyer imagined that she had earned about 100 million yen back, between the times when she was a midwife as well as the real estate.
Jesus. That's...
And this was more of one of several cases where children were neglected in the direct aftermath of the World War. And it's honestly, it's...
I mean, it was just going on top of Ken's and he's on top of Zach.
Honestly, there isn't a direct blame onto who it was. She obviously bared the main front of the accusations and responsibilities for these children because she took responsibility of them. Yet she abandoned that and neglected her duties as their caretaker, which resulted in their death.
These poor babies.
Yeah. We just hope children nowadays can have loving families or be able to be put into a loving family that can accept them and raise them with respect and care.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's sad because she's not the only one.
Yeah, and I hate that fact that she's not the only one.
All 11 others were in Tokyo also did that. They were not the only one. So yeah. That will conclude this short episode of the devastation after World War.
Is she dead now?
She did. She is dead. She was born in February 5th of 1897.
Oh, she's dead now.
She died in May 30th of 1987. She lived till she was 90.
It's a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Should have died sooner.
And that'll conclude our short episode. If you guys have other topics you would like us to research about, you can feel free to tell us, and maybe in the far, far future,
it's a very big maybe.
Very big maybe, we will talk about them and touch on those topics. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Shut the fuck up or I swear to God, Zach. He's on top again.
Sure is.
You can talk out loud for like 5 seconds.
Fuck, you pushed me, bro.
Cheryl, is your butt okay?
Oh, I'm not gonna show you.
My thighs out of my fucking thigh.
You know what we should do? We should all get hamsters.
That's an awful idea.
Why?
That's actually gonna kill it.
No, we all get hamsters and they have playdates.
You fucking squeezed my fucking thigh back.
So Zach has to keep it alive. If your hamster dies, you die too. Oh yeah, no, my is this big.